You've been told to think positive, to say your affirmations out loud every single morning with conviction, to write down your goals, to visualize, to believe. And maybe you've done all of that. Maybe you've been doing it for months, years. And somewhere in the quiet honesty of your own mind, you've wondered why it doesn't seem to work. Not the way they say it should, not consistently, not deeply. Here's what almost no one in this space will tell you. The universe does not respond to your thoughts. It does not respond to your words, not to your affirmations, not to your visualizations. It responds to something operating at a level far beneath all of that, something you've likely been overlooking entirely. And here's the thing. Once you understand what that something actually is, the way you move through your life will never quite be the same. Stay with me, because before I show you what it is, I need to show you why everything you've been taught is only half the picture. For decades, the self-help industry has been selling you a simplified version of how reality works.
And over days, over weeks, as that identity becomes your default state, as it stops being something you reach for and starts being something you simply are, the signal you broadcast changes completely. And the universe, faithful and precise as it always has been, begins to answer differently. Now I want to bring all of this together because there is one final reframe, one shift in the way you understand all of this that I think will change not just how you practice this, but how you see your entire life. I want you to sit with something for a moment. Everything we've covered today, the three portals, the state of being, the signal you broadcast, all of it points to one fundamental truth. A truth that is simple to say, but takes time to really land. The universe is not a system to be hacked. It is not a vending machine waiting for the right combination of thoughts and words and rituals before it releases what you want. It is a mirror. An infinitely precise, infinitely patient mirror, reflecting back the totality of what you are. Not what you want, not what you say, what you are. And that changes everything about the game you're playing. Because if it's a mirror, then the work is not out there. The work is in here. It was always in here. And the moment you stop trying to manipulate the reflection and start becoming someone whose reflection naturally looks like what you want, something shifts. Not metaphorically, actually. The resistance dissolves, the effort softens, things begin to move. Not because you finally found the right technique, but because you stopped fighting the mirror. Now I know what some of you are thinking. This sounds beautiful, but how do I actually sustain it? How do I maintain a state of being when life keeps happening, when the bills arrive, when the relationship is difficult, when the evidence around me is screaming the opposite of what I'm trying to embody? And that is exactly the right question. Because this is not about pretending life isn't hard. It's not about performing positivity over pain. It's about something quieter than that. It's about returning every time you notice you've contracted, every time you catch yourself back in the old climate, the old signal, the old story. You don't fight it. You don't judge it. You simply return to the breath, to the felt sense, to the question, who am I being right now, and is that who I choose to be? That returning, practiced again and again, is what gradually shifts the baseline. That is how the climate changes,
Not in one dramatic moment of transformation, but in 1,000 quiet acts of coming back to yourself. The universe has already said yes. It said yes before you knew what to ask for. The field is not withholding from you. It is simply waiting with perfect patience for your signal to become coherent enough to receive what's already moving toward you. You are not behind. You have not missed your window. You are not broken because it hasn't happened yet. You are simply in the process of becoming someone whose state of being is finally aligned with what they've always known, somewhere deep down, was meant for them. That is not a small thing. That is everything.
If something in this video shifted something in you, even slightly, even the beginning of something, I want to ask you to do one thing before you close this tab. Share it with one person. Not because of the channel, but because someone in your life is sitting with the same quiet frustration you came here with today, and they need to hear this too. And if you want to go deeper, if you want to keep pulling on this thread, subscribe. Because what we covered today is just the beginning of a much longer conversation about consciousness, reality, and what it actually means to live from the inside out. Before you go, take 1 second to notice how you feel right now compared to when you pressed play. That shift, however subtle it is, that is your state of being responding to truth. That is your system recognizing something it already knew but hadn't heard said quite this way. Hold on to that, not as a concept, as a felt reference point. Come back to it tomorrow morning. Come back to it when the noise of the day pulls you out of yourself. That feeling is the signal. That is what you're learning to sustain. If this resonated, leave a comment below. Tell me which of the 3 portals landed most for you. I read every single one, and your answer genuinely helps shape what we explore next. And if you're ready to go deeper, the video on your screen right now continues exactly where we left off. It goes into why the things we want most seem to move further away the harder we chase them, and what to do instead. I'll see you there.
Think it, say it, feel it, receive it. And look, there is truth in parts of that model. I'm not here to tear it down entirely, but there is a critical piece missing from that equation. A piece that when you don't have it, makes everything else feel like you're pushing a door that's meant to be pulled. Here's where it gets interesting. Quantum physics, ancient philosophy, and modern neuroscience, 3 fields that rarely agree on anything, are converging on the same fundamental insight. Your outer reality is not a direct reflection of your thoughts. It is a reflection of your state of being. Now, those might sound like the same thing. They are not, and that distinction is everything. Your state of being isn't a thought you have in the morning. It isn't a sentence you repeat in the mirror. It is an energetic signature, a frequency that you are broadcasting continuously, every hour of the day, whether you are conscious of it or not. The Vedic traditions knew this, the Hermetic philosophers wrote about it, and now neuroscientists are mapping it inside the human nervous system. And what they're all pointing to is this. Most people are broadcasting one signal while desperately wishing for something that only comes from a completely different one. That gap between the signal you're sending and the reality you want is exactly what we're going to close today. But first, I need to show you the actual mechanics of this, the layered model underneath reality that makes all of this not just believable, but undeniable. Let's talk about what's actually happening beneath the surface. Most people, when they try to manifest something, when they try to call something into their life, they start at the top of the ladder. They start with thought.
They pick a goal, they think about it, they repeat it, they try to believe it hard enough. And thought is real. Thought matters. But thought alone is almost powerless. Here's why. A thought without charge behind it is just electrical activity. It's a signal with no voltage. It fires, it fades, and it leaves almost no imprint on the field around you. What gives a thought power is emotion. When a thought becomes emotionally charged, when it stops being just an idea and starts being something you feel, it begins to carry weight. It begins to move things. But here's where most teachings stop, and here's where we go further, because emotion is still not the deepest layer. Beneath your thoughts, beneath your emotions, there is something more fundamental, something more constant, something that doesn't come and go like a feeling does. It's your state of being. And your state of being is not what you feel in a given moment. It is how you are oriented toward life itself. It is your baseline, your default frequency, the water you swim in so constantly that you've stopped noticing it's even there. Think of it this way. An emotion is the weather. It changes, it moves through, it passes. Your state of being is the climate, and the universe, the field of probability that surrounds you, doesn't respond to the weather. It responds to the climate. Now, here's where the ancient traditions and modern science meet in a way that I find genuinely extraordinary. The Vedic concept of spanda, the primal vibration underlying all of existence, describes reality as fundamentally responsive, not random, not indifferent, responsive. The Hermetic law of vibration states that nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates, and things that vibrate at the same frequency naturally attract one another. And quantum physicists like David Bohm proposed what he called the implicate order, a deeper layer of reality folded beneath what we can see, where everything is connected through frequency and information. Three completely different traditions, three completely different vocabularies, one shared discovery. The universe reads your signal at the level of what you fundamentally are, not what you temporarily think, and not what you consciously say. Which means the question was never, what do I want? The question has always been, who am I being? And that question, as simple as it sounds, is where things get uncomfortable. Because when you look honestly at the state most people are actually living in, not the state they perform for 5 minutes in the morning, what you find is something that explains everything.
Here is the part that most people don't want to hear. And I say that not to be harsh. I say it because I think you're here precisely because you're ready for the honest version. Most people are living in a state of being that is in direct contradiction with what they say they want. Not because they're doing something wrong, not because they're broken, but because the state they inhabit most of the time, their climate, was formed long before they ever heard the word manifestation. It was shaped by repetition, by experience, by years of evidence that quietly told them what kind of person they are and what kind of life is available to them. And so they say they want abundance, but they move through their day in a state of chronic scarcity, not always because of what's in their bank account, but because of how they hold themselves, the low-grade tension that's always there in the morning, the quiet resentment in the small moments, the reflex that whispers things like that don't happen for people like me. That state is the signal. Not the vision board, not the affirmation, the 23 hours and 55 minutes of unconscious state that wraps around the 5 minutes of intentional practice. And the universe perfectly, impartially answers that.
Now I want you to think back. Think about a time in your life when something genuinely aligned, when something just fell into place almost effortlessly. A connection, an opportunity, a moment where life seemed to move with you instead of against you.
What was your state in the days or weeks before that happened? Were you desperate? Were you clutching? Were you forcing? Or were you somehow open, settled, quietly expectant without needing it to happen in a particular way? I think you already know the answer. Because somewhere in you, you've always known that the trying harder wasn't what made it work. It was something else, something underneath the effort. That something is what we're going to build now. Because understanding the problem is only half of it. The other half is practical, it's embodied, and it's far more accessible than you might think. There are 3 specific entry points, 3 portals into a genuine shift of state, and I'm going to walk you through each one right now. There are 3 ways in, 3 access points into a genuine shift of state. Not a performed shift, not a forced one, but a real one. One that the field around you can actually read. I call them the 3 portals. And what makes them different from everything else you may have tried is this: none of them begin in the mind. All 3 of them begin somewhere deeper. The first portal is the body. Most people try to change their state by changing their thoughts, but your body and your nervous system are far more direct routes into state than your conscious mind will ever be. Here's something neuroscience has confirmed that ancient traditions knew long before labs existed. Your nervous system cannot fully distinguish between a real experience and a deeply embodied, imagined one, which means the body is not just a vessel carrying your state, it is your state, physically expressed. So here is something simple, something you can do right now, wherever you are.
What you are doing in those 90 seconds is not relaxation. You are literally shifting your autonomic nervous system out of threat mode, out of the contracted, scanning, survival state, and into what researchers call the ventral vagal state, a state of openness, of receptivity, of presence. That is a different frequency, and you didn't think your way there. Your body took you there. The second portal is the felt sense. This one is subtle, but it might be the most powerful of the 3. Most people, when they try to visualize what they want, see it like a movie playing in front of them. They watch it from a distance, and that distance, that gap between the observer and the experience, is exactly why it doesn't land. Here is what I want you to try instead. Don't see what you want, feel where you would feel it. If what you're calling in were already here, already real, where in your body would you feel it? The warmth spreading through your chest? The ease dropping into your shoulders? The quiet, settled satisfaction somewhere in your belly? Find that place. Rest your attention there. Don't force it. Don't manufacture it. Just locate the texture of it, even a faint trace of it, and stay there. This is what mystics across every tradition meant when they said, feel the feeling first, not as a technique, as an arrival. Because when you access that felt sense, even briefly, even partially, you are no longer broadcasting the signal of someone who wants something. You are broadcasting the signal of someone for whom it is already becoming real. That is an entirely different transmission. The third portal is identity, and this is the deepest one.
There is a question I want you to start living inside of. Not asking once, not writing in a journal, but actually using as a lens throughout your day. The question is this: how would the version of me who already has this move through this moment? Not how do I pretend to be that person, not how do I fake confidence I don't feel, but genuinely, what would their posture be right now? What would they notice? What would they let go of that I'm still holding? What decision would they make that I keep postponing? This is not performance. This is access. Because that version of you is not a fantasy. In the quantum model of reality, in the model where all probable versions of your life exist simultaneously as waves of possibility, that version is real. You are not creating it from nothing. You are collapsing the wave function toward it, one moment of genuine identity-level alignment at a time.